Uncle Dan.
Hey, howdy, hey.
You know what I like? You know what I like more than an original?
Sexy girls.
Yes, you know me
Very,
very well. In the 5
Yeah.
years we've known each other, I think you've nailed it. What I like more than the original is a sequel.
Yeah.
You know, it almost always works out.
Yeah, it's usually the better of the films.
You remember the Saturday Night Fever sequel? I think was Sunday morning.
Sunday morning vomiting.
Yeah, so it was terrific.
That was a delightful one.
Not all sequels are as good as the first installment, and this is
Blasphemy.
certainly adherent to that rule.
Okay. Good.
Well, dear uncles, as we teased last week, I'm taking on the second half of the book of Joshua today, and boy, did I suffer for this one. The upside for all of you is that you won't suffer as long as you did last week, and I think this half will be much shorter than the first half because basically nothing fucking happens in the second half of this book.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So let's move on.
Yeah.
There's no blood left.
Right, exactly. Right. Exactly. As I mentioned last week, the book picks up with the death of Moses and follows the exploits, murderous genocidal conquest of Joshua. The book is broken into 4 parts: God's pep talk, the actual, mythical, conquest of Canaan, the partition of the land to the tribes, and then Joshua's farewell address. So last week we talked about God's pep talk, spoiler alert, it wasn't very good, and the bloody conquest. So if you want to hear more about the Israeli army burning men, women, and children by the thousands, you'll have to go back a week. In chapters 1 through 12, to the first half of the book, Joshua leads the army into Canaan across the River Jordan. No thought is given and no mercy is extended to the people living there, with a couple notable exceptions. Rahab the harlot and her family are spared in Jericho before the city is destroyed and burned. And the people of Gibeon, if you guys remember, who tricked the Israelites into sparing them by becoming their slaves instead. One thing I never understood about Rahab is every time her name is mentioned, it's mentioned that she's a harlot.
Right.
But it has no bearing or relevancy to the story whatever.
Right.
She could have been an accountant. She could have been, it didn't matter. But
harlot is actually Hebrew for accountant.
Well, you got to be good with money.
Yeah.
apart from this, Joshua and his army destroy every city they encounter, murder everyone inside, and in a couple cases add the stolen loot to the of these cities to their coffers, and in some cases kill all the animals along with the women and children. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah.
They knew how to party, let's just say that.
Ain't no party like a Joshua party.
Yeah, and as we explored last week, there's even in the brutality, there's no consistency. Right? There were no rules of engagement. There was no like we'll kill this, we'll spare this one, we'll kill this one. It was pandemonium.
Indiscriminate, crazy genocidal killing. And
or
none
not.
of the Yeah, or in some cases not. None of the myriad peoples that the Israelites destroyed did anything to them except just be living on the land that God decided was theirs. So,
well, that's their problem right there.
There's your problem right there.
That is a time-tested problem.
Yeah.
Especially in that part of the world.
Yeah, and in this part.
Yeah, true enough. We pick up the story in chapter 13, where God laments the fact that Joshua is apparently getting quite old, and there is still so much land to conquer and so many women and children to kill.
Yeah.
Because this is the Bible, God lists all the kingdoms that still need cleansing.
God.
I know. The list is way too long, so here's just a sampling. They still need to conquer and kill everyone in Miara, Afek, Balgad, Misref,
Balgad.
Misref Othmai, Mabida, Og, Ashtaroth, Edrei, Jezaha, Kedemoth, Zarethesar, Ashdod, Pisgah, Evi. I'm not making any of these up. Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, Reba, and on. For like that whole chapter, God's just like, oh my God, we still have to conquer this place and this place and this place. So God
get conquered and you get conquered, and
so God hits on a nice little move here to kind of speed things up. He commands Joshua to divide up all these yet to be conquered lands and distribute them to the tribes of Israel. Presumably without the consent of the inhabitants of these lands, they are now all subjects of the Israeli army.
Yeah.
So
Joshua, they know Krav Maga, that's why.
Joshua distributes lands to all the tribes except Levi, because apparently the Lord, the God of Israel, was their inheritance. We'll get back to that for some reason.
Okay.
Chapter 14 is the story of an old man named Caleb, son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite, asking Joshua to fulfill a promise made to him by Moses some 45 years ago that he would be given Hebron as his inheritance as a reward for his obedience, which Joshua promptly does. Okay,
Wow.
on to 15.
Great.
Yeah, that just great. That was very useful to me.
You get a Hebron, and you get a Hebron.
Chapter 15 is one long description of the parcel of land given to the tribe of Judah. With one small aside, it's 63 verses that read like a very detailed deed. Why is it so important to have a granular description of every border of this fictitious parcel of land? Fuck you, that's why. The one aside in the chapter is a quick detour where Caleb, who we met in the last chapter, challenges someone to take the city of Kirjath Sepher, offering the hand of his daughter in marriage to whoever pulls it off. And wouldn't you know it, Othniel, Caleb's brother, takes the challenge and then takes what is his niece in marriage. Because,
Cute.
Bible.
Yeah.
Chapter 15 is an equally detailed, if shorter, description of the parcels of land given to the tribes of Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim. By the way, if you guys remember back to episode 31, where we read my patriarchal blessing,
Yeah.
I am apparently of the tribe of Ephraim.
Oh, that's
right.
nice for you.
Should I try and get an Israeli passport on that claim?
I think so.
Go and wave my patriarchal blessing at him. Chapter 16 continues the engaging narrative hook of property description before inevitably the tribe of Joseph begins to bitch about the size of their parcel and the fact that the lands next door would make a fine addition were it not so full of armed Canaanites. Joshua asks them basically, quote, dudes, have you not been reading this book? Canaanites are for killing. Go get them. At the beginning of chapter 17, we learn that 7 tribes have yet to be given their stolen land. So Joshua commands 3 men from each tribe to travel the land not yet distributed and divide it into 7 parts. Joshua then casts lots to see who gets what, which tribe gets which parcel.
Right.
And we are then treated to 28 more verses of border descriptions of the parcels given to the tribe of Benjamin. Chapter
Exciting. It's really riveting stuff. That
Nothing
the Bible's giving us.
happens. It's so galling. Chapter 19 is a detailed description of the parcels given to the tribe of Simeon and the tribe of Zebulun and the tribe of Issachar and the tribe of Asher and the tribe of Naphtali and the tribe of Dan. 51 more verses of this nonsense. But it seems finally at long last Joshua is done dividing up the land.
I can't think of anything more important to life in the modern world than knowing who got Zebulun.
Right.
You know what I mean? I just think that...
Especially because none of these places existed. None of these tribes.
Well, I'm interested in the parcel that's going to the tribe of Uncle Dan. That's what I'm.
I actually when I mentioned Hadar's name last week, she sent an email and said, "Yeah, all those tribes were real groups of people, mostly kind of under the larger Canaanite banner."
Yeah.
But she's like, what events happened were spaced so far apart that was not in a single human lifetime.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's get through this. Chapter 20 is a weird one. Mercifully short, at least, God commands each tribe to designate a sort of sanctuary city where someone who accidentally kills his neighbor can flee and find refuge from retribution. Yeah. Apparently this was so common, unwittingly and accidentally killing your neighbor, they had to designate 6 cities around the land to deal with this.
Listen, I know exactly what that's called. It's called home base, and you're free.
Yeah.
The rules were, I guess, simple. If you wake up one day and realize you just killed your neighbor and you didn't hate him beforehand, you could flee to one of these cities to await your trial. But if the high priest presiding over your trial happens to die beforehand, you are free and may return to your former life.
Nice.
No problem.
Huge
Can't
incentive
see
to
any
kill the high
problems.
priest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they pull a whole chapter out of this book to deal with this problem. So, as I mentioned before, the tribe of Levi was granted no land as their inheritance because as the priestly tribe, the priesthood is their inheritance. This, however, left them with nowhere to live. So God commands each tribe to designate cities for the Levites. So chapter 21 is one long list of each tribe and all 48 cities they were giving to the Levites. Great stuff. Really engaging.
Yeah.
Chapter 22.
I'm riveted.
Chapter 22 begins with Joshua blessing the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh for their steadfastness in following the Lord. They return this blessing by basically immediately building a stone idol on a hilltop to worship.
Of course they did.
Next verse. Hearing about this, the other tribes rise up and prepare to wipe out Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh. Seeing the army coming, they immediately claim that this is not an idol, it's an altar. Yeah, that's it. An altar to Jehovah.
Stop
burn some sheep on
building
it.
idols. My God, have you learned nothing?
I know.
And this is
Especially
just
after-
one generation after Moses. This is like these are basically like the children of the people that did it when Moses didn't want them to.
Exactly, and they have just conquered this land. You know, the rivers run red with blood of, from the God that they brought with them.
Right.
I don't know if I'd turn on that one, but
Yeah, you don't fuck with that guy.
Yeah.
But these are as we learned when in Exodus, these are very simple people.
God
Boy.
chose poorly. That's all I'm going to say.
that is absolutely true.
Yeah.
So the other tribes, the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh convince the other tribes that it's not an idol, it's an altar, and they spare them. So the three tribes decide to name the altar, and the name they come up with is Ed.
Bubba.
Bubba. This brings us to chapter 23, and the fourth part of the book, Joshua's farewell address. We are again reminded that Joshua has grown quite old, so he gathers all of Israel around him. His initial message is pretty straightforward. You may be the chosen people, but if you piss off this God, he will most definitely fuck your shit up. So, maybe don't do that.
Yeah.
He brings it all home in chapter 24 with a review of the entire show so far. He starts with creation and walks us all the way through the flood, the captivity in Egypt, the Exodus, and the invasion of Canaan. Once again, he admonishes his people not to piss off Jehovah, and we get this famous nugget, quote, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." So finally, at the ripe old age of 110, one of history's most genocidal villains dies and is buried in Timnath-Serah, of course.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I mean, that's what you do.
Yeah. So,
Can I just point out that there was a recent, 1 week ago, march on Washington, or like a little more than a week ago, in support of Donald Trump, where they called it the Walk of Jericho or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
really?
And they kept and all of the speakers kept referring to Jericho as this amazing, awesome thing. And all I could think was, you guys, that was like one of the worst things that happened. Yes, like the good guys of the Bible, quote unquote, good guys of the Bible. They're the ones who won, but they were awful.
yeah.
It's shocking. It's shocking that they're okay with this.
This book is this might be the most pointless book of the Bible I've read.
Come on. now.
It shouldn't be read in church. It should be read at the Hague.
Yeah.
And the second half of
Israel
it is
should be paying restitution to all those cities.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's no doctrine. There's no commandments. There's no anything. It's just a very straightforward narrative of today we killed this city, today we killed this city, and then dividing the land up, and then it's done. Fuck this book.
I don't know if you can say there's no doctrine when it's so very clearly might makes right.
Yeah.
That just seems like
That's
it's
fair.
very obviously that's what it is.
Yeah, but utterly and totally pointless book, honestly.
Yeah.
So there it is. We got one more off the list.
All right. Well,
Told you it'd be a shorter one this week.
thank
Yeah,
you
good work.
for that. We don't
Joshua
have to
is
read
the
it.
opposite of panspermia. What's if you're just spreading death?
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
All
it's
right.
whatever that is.
That sounds great.
Yeah. All right.
Let's move it along.
Let's do it.